Colin, sweetheart, I am begging you to listen to comprehend. I never once said we should replace all car ownership with public transit. I never said that. Why is it that so many people in America now have this bizarre need to think in a binary, that there's no nuance to the conversation at all? Me saying something true, which is that the environmental benefits of electric cars are exaggerated and that we have funneled a ton of government money into electric vehicles, and the private corporations like Tesla that benefit from governmental policies, including huge tax credits, incentives, and carbon credits. We've focused on all of that rather than investing in good public transit. That's all completely accurate. I never once said that we should get rid of all cars. But also in America, people had this bizarre adoration of Tesla and thereby Elon Musk, or maybe it was the other way around, treating environmental cars like they were this wonderful solution to our problems. That in and of itself is greenwashing. Do you know what happens to the batteries of electric cars when they are spent? Also, are you up to date on the most recent research about particulate pollution from vehicle tires, particularly PM 2.5? Simply switching from gas-powered vehicles to electric ones does not solve that environmental issue and that health issue, because PM 2.5 is carcinogenic. Also contributes to asthma, heart problems, and shorter life expectancy. Yes, as you said, Americans love their cars. That's the whole problem I'm trying to address. We would need a cultural shift where we prioritize investing in things like public transit and things like actually having fucking sidewalks in our neighborhoods, investing in bike lanes, even investing in things like car share programs, more carpooling programs. But also you're positing like this bizarre binary that simply doesn't exist. Nobody is advocating for getting rid of all cars in America. Like that wouldn't work. We have such weirdly rigid thinking in America that it's all or nothing, that when somebody says something, there's no nuance. You must take it to the full extent, take it as literally as possible, but even more than that in the most exaggerated way. Me saying electric vehicles are largely greenwashing and our government's like hype of them had far more to do with corporations like Tesla making a bunch of money than it did with saving the planet. And that if we actually cared about green transportation, we would invest in mass transit and also things like sidewalks and bike lanes. That's not me saying we should replace all cars, Colin. Having lived extremely rural in a community with one stop sign and zero stoplights and a 20-minute drive to anything, and no hope of buses or public transit coming out to the reservation where we lived, I'm well aware of the fact that lots and lots of folks around the country are not going to be able to give up their vehicles. That's not the goal there, but the majority of Americans live in cities. The majority of human beings on the planet live in cities where it is possible to invest in public transit, where that is a really good solution, especially as we're looking at all kinds of traffic problems, congestion, and urban pollution, especially PM 2.5. Most of my neighborhood doesn't have sidewalks. I live in what is considered one of the most bike-friendly cities in the country, and it is still dangerous to bike here. And there are large sections of the city where there are not functional bike lanes, where it's not safe to be a cyclist. The places that do have sidewalks, PBOT installed incorrectly many of the ADA accessibility ramps, both for people with mobility issues, but also for people who are visually impaired. Those ramps and those bumpy yellow placards are installed incorrectly all over the city in a place that's supposed to be really pedestrian friendly. In permaculture, we acknowledge that people are really diverse and live in a diverse set of circumstances and have a diverse set of needs. And there's never going to be a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. For example, I can't ride a bike. I have broken both of my legs, one very badly, and it's not possible for me to ride a bicycle anymore. So the bike-only people, like that was never going to be a go for me. Also, when I was caring for my elderly father, I had to have a vehicle to get him around. Now, as much as possible, I took him on the Max or the bus, but there were plenty of times where I had to take him in a minivan. I walk as much as I possibly can. I ride public transit as much as I possibly can, but I also still drive my car. Being extreme in our thinking, having a one-size-fits-all solution is just never going to work. Right? I always talk about good, better, best, and how we can strive for the best, but most of the time, better or even just good is what is actually accessible to us. Imperfect solutions are better than not trying for solutions at all. Minimizing harm is better than just saying, well, it is what it is. We don't need to create false dichotomies. We also should look for things that are real solutions. We should not be content with one sales pitch that tells us this is the solution to everything, and then neglect all of these other options like pedestrian accessibility, like public transit, like bike lanes, like rideshare programs, like car share programs, just because of the clever marketing of Tesla that has minimized the environmental harm of electric vehicles, has oversold them as the solution to our problems. Absolutely, there are many ways in which electric vehicles are better than gasoline-powered vehicles. Absolutely, a lot of Americans love their cars. Okay, well, we can still shift the culture. We can still offer other possibilities and like, oh, clever marketing. Remember a few years ago when all the MAGA chuds, they thought that what they needed, what was cool and manly, was these giant lifted trucks with the offset wheels that looked like they gave their truck a bad BBL. And then they put these things on them that they called, had to look it up, coal rollers. Remember these when they thought they were owning the libs by putting these smokestacks on their cars to be like, haha, maximum environmental pollution. That's how we own the libs, how we show that we're really masculine. Weird how many of those people are simping for Elon Musk and Tesla now, the cars that they previously said only soy boys would drive. It's like you can actually propagandize people and you can convert people, you can change their thinking with advertising and propaganda. Why don't we just use propaganda for good? Why don't we just use marketing and messaging for good when it comes to public transit, when it comes to accessible communities with sidewalks and bike lanes? You know that people are susceptible to marketing. Why do we have to use it only for corporations to extract profit out of us and from our tax dollars? Americans love their cars. Cool. I love riding public transit. I think a lot more people probably would if they realized how much money they would save, how they don't have to have the stress and anxiety of driving in rush hour traffic. They could just sit on the max and listen to their audiobook or read a book or knit or chat with somebody or like take a nap and zone out. There's no reason we can't sell the benefits of public transit, of walking, of bikes, and do that effectively. There's no reason that in many places where folks are like cars are the only option, they're the only option because we haven't bothered to put in public transit. So in many of those locations, we actually could enhance public transit. It doesn't mean we're going to have public transit or walking only everywhere. We need multi-pronged solutions to complex problems. But also, Colin, respectfully, listen to comprehend. Do not manufacture an argument that I was not making in order to contrive a debate that we don't need to be having. Although I hope something positive came out of this conversation.